All right. Hey, welcome. This is Doug, your realtor here in Utah. I've got Nate with me, the owner of Avaro Marketing, an absolute phenomenal company and an absolute uh, genius when it comes to marketing. Um, Also a relative. So I got to take credit because I love the kid. He's awesome. But today we're actually going to switch roles a little bit. So Nate's got the floor, and I'm on the hot seat.
Yep.
So
More or less, we're going to be covering his background, a few different things when it comes to marketing versus real estate. I think it'll be a really interesting conversation. Before we kind of dive too far into marketing versus real estate, kind of fill the viewers in on your background. What's your background before real estate?
well, I mean, I was born. No, we're not going to go back that far. To me, I was in college, and I was thinking about being a teacher, a policeman. Kind of all different stuff. And I took a psychology class, and I thought that was going to be really interesting. And to me, the psychology class drove me bonkers. And I mean, that's funny to say, but the principle of was really fascinating to me. But it's like, to me, it was every test or every question that came up, there were six different possible answers to it. And it's like, no, no, no. I want 2 plus 2 is 4. I don't want 2 plus 2 is 4, 8, 12, and 16 because it didn't make sense. And I mean, and I guess maybe that's probably because I was doing it wrong. we'll tell it how it is, right? So anyway, but from there, I took a marketing class, and the teacher started in and started talking about marketing and started with a grocery store. And to me, all of a sudden, it just caught my imagination because he started talking about how, hey, you know what? When you go into the grocery store, have you ever noticed that, a box of Cheerios is next to the bigger box of Cheerios? Well, do you know why the bigger one's on the right side? Well, that's because most people are right-handed and they reach with their right hand. And I was like, what? Really? That's really true? And so then I wouldn't take them at their word. I'd go look.
Mm-hmm.
All the kids' cereals are down at the kids' level. Really? I'd go look. And I'm sitting there finding this stuff, and it was psychology, but it was more based on the products of. And so to me, it just fascinated me. And he talked about how the layout of the grocery store even is all set up based on psychology. So you have everybody goes in for milk, eggs, and bread. Well, milk's at that corner, bread's at that corner, and eggs are over here. And so the idea is that they want you to go to the farthest reaches of the store and be able to come around. Or the thing that they want to sell the most is right inside the door to the right. Again, because people typically go into the door and go to the right.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, that's where my fascination started. And then I've always been on the sales side of things. I sold cabinets in college, and sold jewelry with a couple of the different bigger jewelry companies, and so that was always an interesting thing to be in the mall and selling. But to me, to be able to combine those two, the sales and the marketing, was really pretty cool. Um, the problem is I got my marketing degree, but then as soon as you get your marketing degree, and I went out into the world to start trying to get a job, the first question is do you have a degree? Yeah, I got a degree. And then the second question was, what experience do you have? I was just in school. And so I ended up having to default into more of the sales world than the marketing world, even though that's where I really wanted to end up. And so but I was always in that marketing mode, if you will. And so at one point I started into the gun safe world. And if you go to, my YouTube channel, to that, at Doug Tarter 9801, you'll see that some of the original videos are gun safes, how to move a gun safe upstairs, downstairs, stuff like that. And so that's where I came from. With as I but as I was in that gun safe world, I'd work with retailers and help the retailers craft advertisements and events and different things that way. And so I'd see them grow, and start to grow. And so I ended up, with a company called Fort Knox Safes. And Fort Knox, great company, great people. And with them, they made me the marketing director.
Mhm.
And so I was in charge of all kinds of stuff. But in that time frame, that was I had to take Fort Knox from the paper era, so magazines, newspapers, that kind of yellow pages, into the digital world
Mhm.
of the early 2010 range. So not today's that realm, but anyway. So to me, that's kind of my background, is how I've gone into that, from the sales to the marketing and stuff that way. So longer story than probably we needed, but that's all right.
No, it's a phenomenal story, and I think it gives a lot of credit to your ability to market, beyond just homes, but in general. So thank you so much. I think that explains a lot. Um, kind of explain to me, how is real estate marketing different inside of Utah and Utah County, versus other states and other areas in the country?
Well, so I'm going to go on my soapbox,
Okay.
and get in my opinion.
Yeah.
So we know how opinions work, but I challenge you: do what I did in that grocery store. Go look.
Mhm.
So when you start looking outside of the state of Utah at real estate, I think real estate agents outside of the state do a lot better job of telling the story. Hey, this house is, it's in the McNeil subdivision that was built in the 1990s, and they had extra thick walls, and they all had this, and they've got X, Y, and Z, and they create the mystique of it, based on the geography, the subdivision, the builder, those types of things. Whereas here in Utah, again, go look, everything is just run off of the grid.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, oh, hey, come see my famous house that I just listed. It's close to shopping and schools, and it's at XYZ West 400 North. And I mean, and that's the marketing of it. By the way, we have an open house on Saturday from 11 to 1. All promotions and anyway, just kidding. but so the difference is in Utah, they don't craft the marketing side of it. It's all just based on location and the grid system, because all of our streets and stuff are north, south, east, west.
Mm-hmm.
It's all a grid system. And so it's easy to find with a grid system, but it's a grid system.
Yep. And kind of to add to that, you're buying a home, not just a building with walls on a corner, right? You're buying, and the reality is most homes in America, you're buying somebody else's home from them. It's the house that they grew up in. It's the house they raised their children in. It's the wife. It's the place they found their wife. Whatever the story is, I think that should be told in the marketing. I think that's a really good point. That kind of going on to that, how do you market homes when you take them to market?
Well, and that's what I really try to do, is market that. And you're exactly right, telling the story. So here's a story. So I had a listing, that we're going to sell a house. And by the way, I hate the term listing, but we're talking there. So we're going to put the house on the market. But the people doing it, it was their mom's house. The mom had passed. And so the brother, sister, and brother-in-law were there, and they interviewed 6 different real estate agents. And I came in and I was last, which is, I don't care. If I was first, the other ones wouldn't have gone anyway, but that's okay. So I'm last. And so they'd already seen the other five and kind of how they did things. And, here's the packet, here's this, here's that. Well, to me, again, that's not how I want to be. And that's not how you sell the house. And so the first thing I did is I sat down and asked the lady that grew up as a little girl in the house. I'm like, what are your favorite memories of this house? And she's like, this house has got the longest driveway, and I used to put on my roller skates and roller skate for hours out front. Well, so instead of just a write up in a description saying, oh, it has an extra long driveway, you tell the story. And an extra long driveway for skateboards, for roller skates, for bikes, for all your kids to be able to have fun and stay out of the street.
Mm-hmm.
And then I asked the brother what was his favorite memory, and he was like, oh man, they had fruit trees in the back, and they used to climb the fruit trees and be able to pick them and eat the fruit right there in the backyard. And so again, instead of just having fully landscaped like most you see most do, we talked about the fruit trees in the back and how delicious the fruit was. And oh, by the way, it was a golden delicious apple tree. It wasn't just a fruit tree. And so being able to do that. So as we did that, and then I had them walk me through the house and tell me stories of the house. Well, as we're doing that, we go in and they're showing me the storage room, and it has just it's unfinished and it's the beams up on top. Well, as we're in there, I happened to look up and I reached up and I grabbed a fishing pole that was just stuck up there. And the guy looked at me and almost had tears rolling down his eyes because he said, that's my fishing pole that my dad got me when I was a kid.
Oh, wow.
And so you're just like, oh man, that hits, and so he now was able to take that back to California with him because they don't live here. Mm-hmm. And, but again, as we get done with this, we've created this story and the reason that it's not a house, mm-hmm. It was a home, mm-hmm. And why they loved growing up in that home. And so by the time we were done we were done walking through the house, they were like, can we sign up? How do we get this going? We want to use you, mm-hmm. because you know how to craft that story. Mm-hmm. Sometimes in the market, it goes really fast. And so it's not done as much as it should be, but still that's really the reality of how you really want to craft that story of the house and why it's not a house, like you were saying, but it's a home.
It's a great point. And kind of to add something to that, 1/4 of buyers in America, regardless of product, 1/4 of them buy off logic. 3/4 buy off emotions. And so having that story built in and having that connection, that's what's going to lead to bringing things to the next level. Selling your home faster is because it has that emotional touch to it.
Well, another real quick story is I had we're selling a house for a couple, $1.6 million. Mm-hmm. It had been on the market for a hot minute. The upper end market was a little off, but that was kind of my aha moment. Is I was watching some real estate shows out of LA and New York, and I noticed that was there. So I redid my marketing and took that off of there, and it was on the street was Eagles Nest, and so we created Eagles Nest Estate rather than 1, 2, 3, 4 Eagles Nest Drive. We created Eagles Nest Estate, and because so many of the high end buyers come from out of state. Mm-hmm. That was sold in 2 months after recreating and matching the marketing from out of state and what the out of state people, because they came from Connecticut, that's what they were used to seeing. Mm-hmm. So when you really think about it, and people are coming from out of state, like Nate just said, they're dealing with emotion. they're not, you may not be used to the grid system like we have. And so it really becomes a hard thing for them to process.
Mhm.
So
No, a phenomenal point. So then I know personally I know the answer to this question, but I know a lot of people might ask, is marketing important in real estate?
absolutely. I mean, it really is, because you can have. I mean, a lot of times marketing gets kind of that lipstick on a pig kind of a thing,
Mhm.
but it really isn't. It really becomes that story. To me, I love going into those old homes,
Mhm.
because those old homes always have a story.
Mhm.
Mostly if you go back into the World War II era homes, the 1920s and stuff, usually 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, front room, kitchen. That's it. But yet then you find them today, and they've added on, and there's more things. And to me, and I've told Nate, is to me, I kind of call it Frankenstein, but everything had a purpose. It's like, oh, hey, we had this house in 1940. Well, all of a sudden there's this introduction of washing machines.
Mhm.
Well, we're going to put the washing machine on the back porch. Well, in Utah, it gets cold. And so, oh, well, how about we enclose the back porch?
Mhm.
Okay, there's an extra room now.
Mhm.
Okay, well, now we've got more kids. We can't fit them in the 2 bedrooms. So let's blow out this wall here and add on or go up or whatever. There's always a story, and those stories are just fascinating. Here locally to where I'm at in Payson, there's quite a few homes that were bought out of the Sears catalog.
Mhm.
So you could buy a house for about $3,500. They would put it on a train and ship it. So it'd show up, and then Nate would have to take it off the train. Anyway, but you'd have to get it off the train and then go build it. But it was $3,500. And those houses, you can see them today, and it's kind of cool once you click in on what they look like. I was dealing with another one that had a client. There was another little town south of here that we were looking at this house, and the homeowner sat there and told me that, did you know that this house came from the Japanese internment camp out in Delta? And I'm sitting there going, I'm looking at the county report of the house.
Mhm.
The county report says it was built in right there in that little city. I'm like, the county's wrong?
Yeah.
And so then we start looking at the house, and sure enough, it was set on a rock foundation, and then they raised it. But when they raised it, they raised the outside. They didn't raise the inside. So we go down and look, and they've got rocks. At one point, they had a beer bottle stuck in there trying to hold the floor up. So anyway, buyers weren't impressed. So, but anyway, my point is that there's all kinds of stories out there, whether it's been moved or built on or added to, and to me, those stories are just the best part of real estate.
Mm-hmm.
So,
no, I love it. Love it. Last kind of question I had. I've heard some people say this in the past, and I'd love to get your opinion on it. Is, are all real estate agents or brokers the same?
No. I mean, flat out, no.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that when I first got into real estate, one of the first things I did is I interviewed the other brokerages, and it was, and with that, because I wanted to see where I stacked up. So I asked a couple different questions. First question I asked is, and I interviewed with about 10 different brokers throughout the area, and this was the kind of the overall average, but it came back where the first question I asked were, how many of the agents are full-time, go to work real estate agents? And the answer was maybe 20%. So that means 80% are part-time. They're hobbyists. They're doing it to, for some, odds and ends that add to a little bit here and there. But that becomes important because they don't know the stories.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know that, that big house that we talked about in Eagles Nest, it had a septic tank. Mm-hmm. Do you know how many agents that showed up there that did not know that that had a septic tank. And it's it's in the writing.
Mhm.
All they had to do is read.
Yep.
But anyway, so full time. And then the next question I asked was, how many agents in their office have a marketing degree?
Mm.
And there were very few brokerages that could think of anybody in their brokerage that had a marketing degree. So we're going to say, we'll give everybody credit, say 1%.
Mm-hmm.
So 1%, so 18,000 real estate agents in Utah, 1% have a marketing degree that to know how to tell the story. 80% are part-time. And then the next question that I ask, because to me, this is another one that really gets missed, but I ask them how many have any kind of sales training. Because in a lot of your brokerages, it's like, oh, hey, here's a piece of paper, have them sign here,
Yeah.
and stuff. But in the your Zig Ziglars and your hard sales trainings, that's not how you do it. Because sales training and sales start from the very gun. And Nate will tell you, one of the things that I am never late.
Mm-hmm.
Because from a psychology standpoint, if I'm late, people start wondering.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all they need is that little chink. When you're selling a house, somebody walks in the front door and takes a big whiff and smells something that stinks.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to start looking for everything else wrong.
Yep.
And so you don't want them to look for everything else wrong. Mm-hmm. So be on time, dress appropriately. I went and took a professionalism in real estate class, and half the class showed up in looked like they just came out of the gym. And I'm like, this is a professionalism class, people. So out of the 40 of them there's like 3 that, or anyway. And then the last story I'll tell you with that is when it comes to agents, I took Nate with me to one of our big sales meetings, and he was in high school. It was one of those where, every once in a while he'd beg to skip school, and I'd accidentally, take him with me. And anyway, but I took him, and there were probably 50, 60 people in this room. And I asked him, I said, if I gave you $1 million, look around the room, who would you give the $1 million to help you buy a house? Mm-hmm. How many did you find in that room? Do you remember?
I think it was 2 or 3. It wasn't much.
Yeah, it was 2 or 3.
Yeah, it was 2 or 3.
And so that's coming from Nate. And I mean, now his background's a little different than everybody else's, but still, really? Mm-hmm. And so to me, I sit there and I'm looking, and it's always one of those questions going every time I see a house for sale. It's like, are they telling the story? Are they full time? Is there something that they need to be there to, let people in? I had was selling a house that they were very active firearm people. Well, I did not want to have firearms laying out. Mm-hmm. And so before anybody would walk in that house, I was there early, walked the house, made sure everything was tucked away and done, so that way there was no question. And then when they were done, I'd go back in and make sure everything was there and everything was correct. To me, that's what an agent is a real estate agent is a storyteller, that salesperson. And if you don't think real estate is sales, what is sales? Let's just define sales real quick. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, in a sales setting, I mean, you go buy a truck. Yes. You bought a beautiful truck here a year or so ago. Mm-hmm. You go in and it's like, well, you go to the car lot and they're like, well, do you want a car? Do you want 4 doors? What is it that you want? That's salespeople. Mm-hmm. And because you're going to say, well, I need a minivan because we got 8 kids. I want a truck because of this. I want I drive a small Hyundai Elantra because it kicks on the gas mileage. And so to me, there's a reason everybody's doing that. There's a reason somebody's looking at that house.
Yep.
What is it? And so selling is narrowing, helping you narrow those decisions. And the best story to that is when my wife and I were going and looking at houses when we moved here. We'd go to a house and we'd open the front door, and she would literally say yes or no from the front door.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, what? and I know I'm a guy, a little thick-headed. I mean, it comes, it's genetic.
Yep. I don't know sometimes.
and so finally I was like, what is it? And she was like, I don't want somebody to see the dishes in the sink if they haven't been done from the front door. I would have never guessed that in a million years.
I wouldn't have.
You know, but yet once you understood, and that's all part of those questions and answers. So when I'm showing houses, I always, after we're done, I always ask, give me your three pros and the 3 cons of that house. And by them giving me those lists and getting them talking, we're able to narrow down and really help them. So to me, I think by what we've gone through, I hope it really does show that there really is a difference in real estate agents and brokers.
No, I completely agree. One more bonus question. I know I said the last question I asked is my last one.
Last of the last.
Last of the last. Bonus question. If someone right now is watching and they're looking for a real estate agent, what is the 3 questions you would have them ask that real estate agent that they're meeting with?
I mean, I would ask just what we've talked about is, first, the first question I'd have them ask is, what areas do you specialize in? By license, I can sell anywhere in the state of Utah. If somebody said I wanted to go live in Logan, Utah, or Bear Lake, yes, I could help them buy something, but I don't know the neighborhood. I don't know if there's water issues. I don't know.
Yep.
It's better to have that expert. And so that's the first question I'd ask is, what area are you expert in? The second is, I would ask them, that same question as far as, what kind of experience do you have on the sales and marketing side? And then I think the third question I would ask any agent is, I would ask them, boy, that third one's there's so many that are running through my head right now.
You're good.
But I mean, I guess to me, I would really ask them, say, with the criteria I've given you, what would you suggest? Because if you gave them, if I just sat there and said, hey, Nate, I'm looking for 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, need a small yard for the dog, fenced in, and, we're coming from out of state.
What type of dog? How big is the dog? What?
Yeah. I mean, there's more to it than that. But if I just stopped, and then all of a sudden Nate's like, whoa, let's put you in Orem, or let's put you in Provo, or let's put you in Vineyard. Why? Why? Okay, how about some other questions? And that's, I mean, you saw what Nate did because Nate knows. but it's like, do you travel? Do you need to be close to the freeway? Do you, what about the airports? With the family, do you want a private school? Do you want to have, I had a family that moved from a good distance, but their whole criteria is they wanted to be as close to a Catholic church as possible. And I thought that was pretty cool. But by telling me that, and me asking and getting that information tells me a whole lot more than just spitting out and regurgitating some address, north, south, east, west, and let's go.
Yep.
So
And then to summarize, then, so you'd say the first most important, the first question you'd ask is what area do you specialize in? What city? What region? What county? Second question: how many years of sales and marketing experience? Can you tell the story of my home beyond just saying that it's 4 walls and it's the street address, right?
right.
And the last one, correct me if I was wrong, but the last one being asking questions to not just find general information about what you're looking for, but helping you find the new home that you'll be buying. Correct?
Well, yeah, give them give them kind of what you're looking for, and then just say, what would you recommend?
Yes, exactly.
What would you recommend? And then that's going to tell you, because if they sit there and if they haven't heard you, so if you've told them that I want this house, I want to be in this city, and I want to be at this price point, and then they turn around and say, well, I would really recommend this other city. I would really recommend this higher price. That means they're not listening to you.
Yep.
And so they're not listening then. They're not going to listen later.
Fair enough.
So one final thing I'll tell you with different real estate agents. I had a guy come into town 4 years ago. He sat there and started calling real estate agents alphabetically. Starts with the A's on a Friday. Monday morning, my phone rings at 10 o'clock. And I pick up the phone. He told me I was the first real estate agent to answer his phone. My last name starts with T. Come on, people. I mean, 18,000 real estate agents, and you get to the T's before somebody answers it. And I handle the luxury tour for high-end luxury homes here in Utah County on the south end. And it's true. So here's my challenge for today to end this off. Call your real estate agent that you use. When they don't pick up the phone, call me.
I like that. I like that.
There you go.
Here we go.
All right. Thanks, man.
Thank you. Sorry, I threw a random one at you.
That's all right.
I kept thinking, I was like, oh, this would be a great question to wrap up with. So, sorry if it kind of came out of nowhere.
No, you know me well enough. We can bounce and.
I knew you could handle it. That's why I was afraid.